Y'all know Tia and Tamara, the famous identical twins from back in the day, sister, all that stuff. That's just, yeah, all that stuff. I was told to watch it, but anyway. This story ain't about entertainment. This is about something more interesting and deep and substantive. So I just want y'all to know that. Anyway, Tamara Mowry's husband, Adam Housley, just got lit up on social media. Whew. This dude went on Beyonce's internet and said that some food stamp users, quote, work the system. They work the system. And once he said they work the system, he got dragged pretty hard. Now, for context, her husband, Adam Housley, is a former Fox News reporter. I'm not saying let me say it differently. Being a former Fox News reporter or a current Fox News reporter doesn't necessarily make you an asshole. This guy may be the most wonderful person in the world. I don't know him. I have not met Adam Housley. I literally wouldn't know him if he walked up to me on the street. But I will say that people who do reporting for Fox News or hosting for Fox News often have a point of view, a particular point of view, and his comments reinforce my belief about what his point of view probably is. Anyway, he didn't just say people work the system. He said that he says that he saw people buy junk food with food stamps, then use cash for liquor and cigarettes while working at his family's grocery store. He even called out people who scammed change, he says, just to buy alcohol. Now, with the Trump administration back, and they're pushing to restrict what SNAP users can buy, his comments are kind of fueling and also just reflecting a bigger debate, which is, should the government control what people eat? Or is this just policing poor folk? This is a tough conversation to have, right? I mean, and it ain't the first time we had it. Remember, Michelle Obama caught hell for trying to make school lunches healthier when Barack Obama was president, and her critics slammed her for food policing kids. Conservatives said she was forcing government control over personal choices. So it's fascinating to see when the right picks and chooses, to see when the general public picks and chooses. I understand what Mowry is saying. I know people on food stamps. I know people who get WIC. I know people who got all kinds of stuff, and they don't always make choices that I would make. I know people who sell their food stamps. Yeah, sure, of course I do. I know people who sell food stamps, and they do other things with the money. But it's so easy to beat up on poor people. Rather than beating up on poor people, why not critically assess and examine the system that produces poverty and that constrains or forces the choices that you're criticizing? Let me put it more simple. You say people buy junk food with food stamps, but people who buy food stamps often live in places that are food insecure. So yeah, maybe I shouldn't buy potato chips or whatever, pound cake or whatever, used to go with Bill Cosby's examples or whatever with my food stamps. Maybe I shouldn't buy a cheesesteak or crab fries with my stuff. Maybe I should go and buy groceries and all of that. I'm with you. I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm sure, I don't doubt that Adam Housley saw that. But I also know that most people who live in the neighborhoods where those things are happening also have deep food insecurity. You already got to go 2, 3, 4 miles to get fresh fruits and vegetables. You already got to get on a bus or a train or a subway to get foods that actually serve your body well. So I'd rather you, Adam Housley, wealthy person, rich person at least, privileged person, I'd rather you focus on the food insecurity that people face than to talk about the guy who bought a Chico stick instead of a stalk of celery, or the person that bought a grape soda instead of spring water. I get it. I want people to make healthier choices too. But I'm also not going to use my pulpit to criticize those things. Now, again, there's another layer to this, right? Because some of you are saying, "Oh, this is just whataboutism, right? Why can't we criticize both?" I'm saying it's not enough. It's not just a matter of me saying there's bigger fish to fry, although there are. I'm also saying that the choices that we're making, these unhealthy choices that we're making, and these these games that we're running against the system, the working of the system that he's talking about happens because of the circumstances that we are placed in. People sell food stamps for cash because there's no living wage jobs. People sell food stamps for cash because it's easier to get a meal than it is to find ways to put clothing on their children's backs. And so sometimes you sell the food stamps or you eat shitty food because it's cheap. You know how hard it is to eat high quality food? Do you know how much Whole Foods costs? We used to call it a whole check. So if you can afford Whole Foods and you go to that corner store where you worked, Adam Housley, which rarely has fresh fruit and vegetables, which rarely have other things that people need to be sort of healthy and meet the USDA's guidelines for a healthy diet, those stores don't have that. So we end up having to rob Peter to pay Paul, either financially or dietarily. People scam change just to buy alcohol. Yes, people drink. Let me tell you something. The reason part of what we talk about minimum wage versus living wage is because poor people deserve dignity. They deserve a quality of life. A living wage allows you to have a modest life, but a decent life. Food, shelter, utilities, transport, healthcare, childcare, and recreation. There's space for recreation. There's space for entertainment. There's space for joy. There's space for pleasure. The idea that poor people should never go to a movie or poor people should never have a glass of wine or whatever their alcohol or product of choice is unfair. And it's also funny that the right is so obsessed with the government being in their business. Again, when Michelle Obama wanted healthy public school lunches, they said, oh my God, she's a communist, she's a monster, she's all these things because she's trying to get into our refrigerators and our bellies. What? Public school or school lunch is federally funded. It's paid for my tax dollars. Federal funding goes to pay for public assistance and food stamps. In other words, the government has no more a right to be intrusive in my public school lunch than it does in my food stamps. But we've somehow decided that when it's poor people being policed, no, poor people, oh, you're on welfare, you should be drug tested, and you should have your DNA checked, and you should be sterilized, and we should inspect every morsel you put in your mouth with your food stamps. But when it comes to everyday people or middle class people or people who we deem undeserving when it comes to that, now all of a sudden, we want to be on top of everything.